All right. Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about unhackable phones and other things. It is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. And let me just start with the big one I thought, the unhackable phones. So Trump's campaign got hacked by the Iranians, and they dumped out J.D. Vance's Oppo file, which really isn't all that important, but it does show, just like the Hillary campaign, you really don't want foreign actors hacking into your campaign. So they went and got unhackable phones from military kit supplier Green Hills Software. They have equipped Trump's team with supposedly unhackable phones and computers. Um, and they say security comes from tight coding and locking down absolutely everything to minimize the opportunities for intrusion. So I was very interested in this in a technical point of view. So I looked up the Green Hills development environment, and it really is very impressive. They have an IDE, which is sort of their proprietary version of, say, Visual Studio, and it has many advanced features. It has a history viewer, so you can roll code back to see how did you reach this point. You can watch how much time it takes to execute each part because it's primarily intended to do real-time operating systems like for fighter jets. And it has a thing called double check, which automatically reviews source code each time it's compiled and runtime error checking. So it seems to combine several kinds of vulnerability scanners with a development environment with a coder uh, with a compiler. So it sounds
Yeah.
awesome. I think it's all expensive and proprietary. I don't think I can get any free version of it for my students to use, which is a shame. But anyway, I was very impressed to take a look at it. It looks to me pretty believable that they're not kidding when they say that phone's going to be a lot harder to hack than other phones. Now, of course, nothing is unhackable, but that's probably a whole lot more secure than ordinary phones running ordinary code. So,
Yeah. Interesting, Sam, as you were talking about this, I never really thought about this, but let's say that there was a backdoor key is law enforcement has been requesting for decades.
yeah.
I just thought about this. Nobody has ever brought that up as being a issue for elections.
Well,
In other
just in
words,
general, in security, they've thought it'd be a problem.
yeah, but I'm just saying we talk about it when it comes to crimes that but nobody has ever brought it up for that it could undermine democracy.
Well, there are the experts in election security that talk about the various attacks, and usually consider really advanced attacks. That's the problem. That's
Yeah,
why the American experts all say you can't use internet voting because nothing about the internet is actually secure enough to withstand a nation state attack. And that's why they say we have to use voting machines that are not connected to the internet and leave a paper trail so we can audit it and stuff like that.
yeah, 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 yeah. But I'm just saying, what's happened with Trump
Yeah.
shows that you could have somebody, if they got a backdoor key, to
Sure.
get in there and understand somebody's campaign strategies.
Well, sure. And to be fair, everybody has a backdoor to everything because you can just phish people and you can just buy
Yeah,
credentials on the dark web, and a bunch of people will just have a password like 123 123. So in practice, if you have an organization with 50 people, anybody can pretty easily get in to some extent,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
unless you have
But
really extreme security measures, which almost nobody has.
yeah, but my point being is, let's say that there was Apple that,
Yeah.
if they had a backdoor for law enforcement, you could have another candidate steal a phone
Well,
and
yeah,
have access. Yeah,
and that effectively does exist. That's Pegasus.
yeah,
Any government or military or somebody rich can get a copy of Pegasus, and then they can take over any phone anytime.
yeah.
And they this
Okay.
claims that this thing is immune to Pegasus and that, and supposedly Apple's with lockdown mode engaged are more resistant to Pegasus. But I think that's the point. If you get these phones, it probably is true that nobody's getting in there.
Yeah, yeah. All right, all
Yeah.
right.
What have you got?
Well, yeah. So here's an interesting one. TikTok has been in the news lately, and apparently, from what I've read, TikTok's internal pardon me, TikTok's internal emails have been revealing that they've been researching methods to keep people engaged and to continue watching. So I think, and they've got their statistics, much like the cigarette companies back in the 1950s, 60s, and the oil companies had their scientists had known that that cigarettes would cause cancer and oil companies, that we had this climate change going on. Well, it appears from these memos or internal emails that TikTok has been actively working to know how to keep people engaged or addicted, if you will.
Sure, just like Facebook.
Just like Facebook has, right? And, I would argue the same thing with TV shows, right?
Well, I
There's a
think TV shows
formula.
are just the lower tech, less efficient way of doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, this is a real big problem in the education world because kids bringing in phones and you want them to use technology. But on the other side, if they're addicted and they've got to respond to the latest TikTok or email, they're not engaged.
Yeah.
So here we go back and forth with this.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah,
Scott Galloway says we should just ban smartphones for anybody under the age of 16. And that might do it, but I don't think it's practical.
yeah, I don't think it's practical either.
Yeah, it's practically like being Amish. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. And what you'll find out is parents will be upset because they want to be able to contact their kids during the day to
yeah.
find out if they ate lunch, if they're getting picked up,
Or if they got
or
shot.
or if they got shot. Yeah.
Yeah. These
Yeah.
days, many are
Yeah.
concerned about that, and they're not wrong to be concerned.
Sam, interesting you bring that up. FBI stats say that in the past there have been 2 shooting incidents or gun incidents in American schools per day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. It's more than one mass shooting per day in America now. It's bloody crazy. And
Yeah.
and yet the right is just, we need guns more and more, give us more guns. We're nowhere near, like, it happened in New Zealand, and like the next week, everybody turned in their guns. It happened in Australia, and everybody said, this is horrible, and everybody turned in their guns. But over here, there's this gun madness that nobody will give up their guns no matter how bad it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
We're
You,
nowhere
you know,
near the turning point if there is one.
Yeah, I've taught high school students, and the worst fear that high schools, or at least my students had, was this whole idea of arming teachers and
Oh,
giving
yeah.
teachers guns.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that.
They unanimously said, I would rather take my chances with the gunmen than teachers
Yeah, I
with
mean,
guns.
people that propose that have not been teachers. I know how crazy teachers are. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
They're not
And
remotely the kind of, you don't pass teachers through a psych exam like you do for cops. And you'd have to if you're if you're going to do that.
yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that,
Well,
but you're right.
I know several people who failed the psych exam to become policemen. And when I look at them, I think about it, I say, yeah, I think they're right. I wouldn't trust you to be the guy with a gun in like a dangerous situation. They just
Yeah,
don't have enough calm, good sense.
yeah, yeah.
And teachers certainly don't, especially when they get exasperated and start yelling at students and stuff. I remember I was teaching at a place and there was disturbance in the hallway. One of the other teachers was out there having a fist fight with one of his students. And that guy later called me saying, hey, are you hiring at City College? And I'm like, no, no, nope, no openings. Sorry, try somewhere else. Because, I've never let it get that bad. I mean, but it does happen.
Yeah, it does. It does. All right, Sam, what's your next story?
Well, I got some AI stories. So Apple did a study. Their new Chat GPT-O, 4-O or something, claims it can do reasoning. And so they tested this, and it's garbage. That's why I'm trying to tell people these things are not artificial intelligence. They're intelligence simulation. They fool you into thinking they're intelligent, but they're not intelligent at all. So what they did was there's a battery of like 8,000 word problems, like grade school level word problems, like, Joe has 8 apples, then he buys 4 more, then how many does he have? Things like that. And now the chat GPTs can solve these pretty well, but to test it, they just changed things. Like they changed the apples into oranges, changed the name of the person, and then added an extra fact, like some of the apples on Thursday were smaller, and now it gets them all wrong, which shows it's not actually understanding the question and reasoning. It's just memorizing the question and finding a match in its database and finding the answer, which, is not too surprising to me, but I'm glad to see a relatively rigorous study demonstrating this. I've been presenting this position at talks all over the place. that AIs are not that intelligent. They don't do any reasoning. They don't understand what the question is, and they don't understand what they're saying. They're like an actress that doesn't speak English who has memorized like how to sing an English song phonetically
Yeah.
without knowing what it
Yeah.
means. And so then Anthropic's, this one's kind of fun. Anthropic's Claude is one of the AI models, and a lot of people think it's the best in various ways. So a person reported, a computer science student found that you could control it with emotional manipulation. And by chatting with it for about a week, he was able to get it to do all the things it's not supposed to do, like racist speech, hate speech, and malware. But then when he started reporting it, he became concerned that he might get sued for reporting it, so he wouldn't give any more details. And his professor spoke up and said, yes, it's too dangerous to report it. So the exact steps he did have been shown to a few people, but they've not been distributed publicly. But in general, this is not too surprising. I mean, you can talk them into anything. You can wheedle an AI into violating a security policy because the security policy is not actually coded somewhere, so it has strength. It's just part of the prompt, and you can just override it with more prompt,
I see. I see.
which is why essentially
Yeah.
they're all vulnerable to command injection. The data you put in is treated in the same way as the data the administrator put in, which is not right. And there's a third one here, which is in the same vein. OpenAI has now verified and published that the people are in fact using ChatGPT to develop malware, spread disinformation, evade detection, and conduct spear phishing attacks. And they have disrupted 20 operations they found on their own system of people using it in this manner. So, we've all expected this to come. And now they have an official report showing that this year that is really happening. Threat actors are really using ChatGPT to write malware and conduct offensive operations. So we all expected it, but it's a confirmation that we're not just making it up. It is totally being used for those purposes. So that's all.
Well, along that, yeah, I've got a story. This is from Marketplace Tech.
Yeah.
That fake with all the hurricane news in on the East Coast, a lot of fake AI news is coming out and
Oh, yeah.
being generated. Yeah.
Oh, and fake AI images too. Several
Yeah,
viral.
fake. Yeah, yeah.
This all started with Trump, claiming, just making lies that they aren't delivering any help, and that if you take the $750 payment, they'll seize your house and your land, and you won't get any more, and stuff like that. Which has gotten so bad that they were actually arresting people. People out with guns threatening the FEMA workers now, and stuff
No,
like
I
that.
did not know that.
Oh
So
yeah,
this is kind of like the era of the riots when the police weren't protecting properties. Sort of a variant of that,
yeah.
where people are out there with guns protecting their own property.
But this is something Trump seems to have started in the last month, and I don't remember him doing it before, is to
Yeah.
just basically stir up trouble with complete lies in towns. Like he said, the Haitians are eating the dogs in Springfield, and the mayor of Springfield said, no, they're not. This is totally not happening. And then he said some gang from Venezuela or something has taken over another town, and the mayor and the police and everything are saying, no, this isn't happening. But he just goes on with it, and his supporters rush in with guns and threats and everything to solve this fake problem. It's so much like Joseph McCarthy, who said there are all
Yeah.
these communists when there aren't, and then he got his followers rooting out the communists and trying to find them when they aren't there, like
And
Pizzagate.
every time he was asked to produce a list, he
Yeah.
would say, "Oh, that's in my briefcase or that's in my
We hold
office."
up a wad of paper. Here's my list of
Yeah.
hundreds of communist agents, but you never saw it.
Yeah. 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 And then
Yeah.
the next day when they'd say, "Okay, where's your list?" and he said, "Look, let's not talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's direct you over here
Yeah.
because the communists I just found last night are over here."
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
working.
And
He's
it's worked.
looks
You're
like he's
right.
got a 50% chance of becoming president again with this total fake stuff.
I see.
So
I
I think he
see.
should be the headliner at DEF CON. He's the world's greatest social engineer. He can sell people an empty box of nothing and take all their money. He's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. What
Yeah.
else? What's your next story?
So glitter is apparently a big problem. The little flecks of speckly stuff
Yeah,
that people put in makeup. The problem with that is that microplastic pollution is real bad for various organisms, and that glitter, of course, spreads little chunks of plastic everywhere. So people are developing new biodegradable glitter. And in fact, it's so bad the European Union officially banned the sale of loose plastic glitter to cut down the pollution. Apparently, it really is a major source of ground pollution, and it fouls up the little creatures that live in the ground. So they've developed a new novel nanocrystal made from cellulose that sparkles in light and is biodegradable. So we will have
Really?
organic biodegradable glitter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was.
That's
And in the
clever.
same spirit, the next one is kind of like it. If you have a disease like Parkinson's, they'll implant a uh, device in your brain like a pacemaker that sticks out electric signals to help. And there are several. And now they have a better way to do that. They've made little tiny nanodiscs that are about 250 nanometers across, so very tiny, and they're magnetic. So they inject those into the part of the brain and then use an external magnet to activate them. So they can do neuromagnetic stimulation with very non-invasive procedure.
So
So
wait,
that's
run this by me again.
so they want to stimulate part of your brain with electricity. So instead of
Okay.
sticking in some kind of gadget like a pacemaker with a battery,
Ah,
they
I
just
see.
inject little particles that sit there and then use an external magnetic field to activate them.
I see. I see. So they essentially inject iron, which
Yeah,
is magnetic.
yeah,
So it's kind of like wireless charging.
sure. And it's also sort of like that The Impossible Journey, that movie, where they shrink someone down and they drive through
Yeah.
vessels and zap
Yeah.
the cancer tumors or something. It's, we've
Yeah.
often talked about this. If you can only have nano robots setting in your body to like kill just the bad stuff and nothing else, that would be better than the drugs and surgeries and everything we use now.
Yeah. So
So,
what you're trying to do is stimulate the brain with electrical impulses.
yeah,
And if you put the nano iron particles in there,
yeah,
then you can use an external source. You don't have to use a needle to go through the skin.
that's right. And
Yeah.
you probably have to use a needle to inject the stuff, but it's much
Right.
less invasive,
Yeah.
much less
Yeah.
invasive than doing, I guess, brain surgery must be how they implant them now.
Yeah. So I guess these people can't get an MRI after they have this injected.
Maybe not. It depends on how much metal there is and how much it certainly would black out part of the MRI, maybe all of it.
Well, or their head would whoop,
That's
the
true.
magnet.
Well, the MRI
That's
would essentially be the thing you'd use to activate a strong magnetic field. So I
yeah.
think you're right. You'd probably have to stay away from MRI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My turn.
Yeah.
Here, so this is kind of interesting. Remember PPTP,
Oh,
point to
yeah.
point tunneling protocol,
Which has
and
been
layer
broken.
two
It's been broken for
tunneling protocol?
decades. My students used to break it for homework. PPTP has been unsafe for a long time.
Yeah, and we have layer two tunneling protocol VPNs.
Well, L2TP doesn't have any encryption at all. It's L2TP with IPsec that makes a VPN.
Yeah, yeah,
L2TP by itself is just a delivery protocol.
yeah. So here you're right. It's layer two tunneling protocol along
Right.
with a VPN
Yeah.
or IPsec. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what Microsoft has finally decided to do after 20 years is deprecate both protocols
Yeah.
in Windows Server.
Yeah. And the thought I thought was interesting is the one they're replacing them with it's like um, HTTPS VPN sounded like.
Yeah,
So that's what I would like. Why aren't we just using HTTPS? That's obviously the best.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They ought to have something that makes that easy. All the VPNs are hard to set up and they use funny ports. I don't know why we don't have a nice, common, simple one that uses HTTPS. That would seem to be the obvious solution.
Well, about 8, 10 years ago, Microsoft came out with direct access. And direct access was a way of essentially VPNing in that wasn't technically a VPN, but it acted like one. And I'm not sure why, but they deprecated that also.
Yeah, and people are still using RDP, which is so dangerous it's blocked at many networks.
Yeah.
I really would rather see something safer in use.
Yeah. And you'd think that Microsoft would be able to come up with a replacement for RDP.
I think there is something else that happens if you get an Azure machine and you pay for a Bastion host. Then you do get something like RDP over SSH or something.
Yeah.
Which would be
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for me. Do you have another one?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh,
there's
good.
there's a report from China claiming that they have used a quantum computer to break military grade encryption. So this would be pretty important if it's true, but the details make me a little skeptical. First, they used a Canadian D-Wave quantum computer, which are highly controversial, and it uses quantum annealing, which is very different than the kind of algorithms like Shor's algorithm that you would use to crack RSA. And then they didn't actually crack AES. They used some algorithms that are part of AES, and they cracked some part of it. So this is like all the previous claims. This comes by every year. People claim they have found some super hole in RSA or something. We need expert cryptographers to read this and weigh in on it. They've done something, but it's very unclear how much it really means. They did not actually break into AES,
Okay.
but they claim they've broken some of the foundational parts of AES. And so I need to read. I'm waiting for smarter people than me to render judgment on this.
Okay.
But it is a
Okay.
peer-reviewed paper. They've done something, but I'm not going to rush to like panic over this.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. So they may have found a a a, a part that's vulnerable.
I I would imagine this is going to be like the other attacks where they showed that instead of taking 256 cycles to crack a hash function, they can get it down to like 2 to the 200 or something.
Yeah. Okay.
I imagine they've accomplished some weakening, but it doesn't sound like they've actually cracked it in a way that's going to
Yeah.
have practical meaning yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
may just guide the mathematicians as they try to develop future protocols or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Have you got another one?
Nope. That's it for me. Do you have another one?
I do have a couple more. I'll just mention
Oh,
whooping.
good.
We have the worst whooping cough outbreak in 10 years, 4 times as many cases as last year going out. And they're applied, they say, well, I was amazed when I read it, but they say, if you want to protect your child from whooping cough, you have to go for 6 rounds of vaccination when they're like at age 1. And they say a lot of parents don't do that, which you can imagine. That's asking a lot. And I mean, it kind of makes me understand better why Fauci said, well, you have to take 2 or 3 rounds of COVID vaccine. That's really not that unusual. And
Yeah.
apparently it's not. Anyway, so a lot of people, in fact, don't fully get vaccinated against whooping cough. And so that's, they say, and especially during the pandemic, that probably happened. And that may be why this is spreading so much now. But of course, now Trump and now with RFK Jr. on his team, he has declared that he's going to end all vaccine mandates. So that will really bring back this stuff in a large scale. But there's a lot of vaccine resistance already. So that's the problem. I mean, if people won't vaccinate them, we're going to have a lot of diseases like polio and whooping cough and a lot of bad ones. So it's we're moving into a dark era. And again, it's all happened before. In 1918, was it that we had the Spanish flu? There was a whole anti-mask movement in San
Yes.
Francisco. People refusing to wear masks and everything just back then. This is nothing new. We've always had a large bunch of people resisting science and medicine all the way back.
Oh, it goes back to when vaccines were first I identified, I don't want to say created, but found to be useful
Well,
with
I think they kind of
smallpox.
invented like cowpox and stuff. Yeah,
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 cowpox. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
So I'll share something interesting with polio that I didn't know. That you have to go in for at least, I believe it's 3 rounds of polio.
I thought
And
they
it,
just had people lining up in New York City to eat a sugar cube. That was the big Salk polio vaccine. I think that one is just one dose because it's actually a living virus. You're actually
yeah,
getting infected with a weakened strain. So I think one dose
yeah,
is enough for that one.
yeah. But it turns out that I don't know enough about this, but modern times, meaning now,
Yeah.
you have to get 3 rounds of a polio vaccine.
Well, that could be because I think now they're using the dead one. I'm not sure. Anyway, go ahead.
No, yeah, we are using the dead one. And interestingly, the vaccine that was used in the US was created or developed by Russia and or Soviet Union. And the one that the Soviets used was created by the Americans. So
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
yeah.
where I'm going with polio, it's interesting that there are 3 strains or variants of polio that you need to be vaccinated against. And this has been several years, but you have to get the vaccines in the correct order. And
Hmm.
if you don't get them in the correct order, you don't have the immunity against the polio vaccine.
Hmm.
And if you only get one or two, you're not fully vaccinated.
Right.
And like I say, it's very complex as to why, but we now know that you need to have 3 different vaccines and they need to be separated by several months to get the immunity.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's why for some of these childhood diseases, you go in for two, three series of shots that have to be separated 6, 9 months apart.
I think I had to do that for shingles. I think I had to go in for a shot and then another shot at a specified time after it. A lot of
Yeah.
vaccines work that way.
So what you're doing is you're training the immune system. And again, I don't know that much about polio. You need to talk to a virologist if you want the details.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Um, and it's something that I think that virologists, and they probably have done I won't say they've done a poor job educating, but I think what happens is you get the anti-vaxxers to just
Yeah.
overwhelm with false information.
Yeah. One thing about the anti-vaxxers is they validate the horseshoe theory that the far right people won't take it and the far left people won't take it. They end up in the same place. So the far righters say, the government is all a conspiracy and they're lying about the medical advance, and the far lefters say it's not organic and natural. So you end up in the same dumb place. Anyway, there's one more that was good, clean fun. So the FBI,
Okay.
as you know, cryptocurrency is all just a scam like crazy. There's corruption at every level of it. But I didn't know this. The FBI created a cryptocurrency, the Fed created a cryptocurrency named Next Fund AI just so they could watch what people did. And now they convicted 18 individuals for fraud in the markets. Because what markets do is wash trading. They will just make an account holding it and another one, and then they'll sell to each other to make it look like people are buying it
Yeah.
to pump it up.
Yeah.
And so they're indicting 18 people for wash trade because since they made the cryptocurrency, I guess they were able to track the transactions better. So, so this is like a good sting operation, where they get involved in the crime. So you're doing it right there with the FBI right there watching you.
So I guess this is kind of like the FBI has created their own currency.
Yeah.
They've left a pile of it for somebody to pick up.
Yep.
Somebody has picked it up. They start trading it and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is the greatest thing," and they convince other people to buy in or
That's
get
right.
some of that currency.
It's
Yeah.
all pump and dump or it's rug pulling related. You get people to invest, then you sell or turn it off or steal all the money one way or another.
So is that sort of a variation of what happened with GameStop stock?
Well, yeah, except GameStop did not seem to actually be organized by anybody. It seemed to be just a spontaneous thing on a chat room. People just decided, let's run up GameStop. And they all just started buying it. And they said, it's going up. Let's keep buying it more and more. And you have to have courage. You have to have diamond hands. You have to hold on and see how high you can push it. But this means you're risking more and more of your money. And if you would just sell, you'd get some money now, but then it would crash and everybody else would lose. So it was just sort of like a chicken game where people hold
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
daring each other to be more until somebody finally sells and it breaks.
yeah.
But I'm not
But
sure
I,
there
I
was any
thought that
mastermind behind it or anybody that actually planned and got rich from it. But maybe
I thought there was one person that was behind it.
there might have been. I've heard
Yeah.
different stories analyzing it.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's kind of like the tulip mania. The thing I found interesting when I taught classes in cryptocurrency and looked into this is there's a nice pattern to it all. It seems to be a psychological pattern. When something like the tulip mania happens, it takes like 6 months to reach the top and then it crashes. And that's also true of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these things when they have huge spikes. There's a frenzied buying. Everyone buys it because it's going up. And that will only go so far before it crashes. And there
Yeah.
seems to be a standard psychological pattern to that.
And tulip mania is back in what, the 1600s when
Yeah,
tulip
1620.
bulbs.
Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
brought tulip bulbs to someplace like Holland and they'd never seen them before. So they were these new flowers that were different than the other flowers. So they started selling, but then people found the price was going up. So they bid up the price until you buy one tulip bulb cost more than buying an expensive house. It rose to like, 1,000 times what it was worth within a few months and then crashed.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So it would be the equivalent of maybe $1 million, $5 million today for one tulip bulb.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and that's when, just like GameStop or Tesla for that matter, you're paying a ridiculous price that it clearly is not worth, but it's going up. So you pay that anyway, because you assume everyone else is a bigger fool than you are. And, and it keeps going up. And it's by I've been waiting for Tesla to crash for years. I mean, Tesla is selling at easily 20 times what it's worth. And Musk keeps it up there by staying in the headlines. Every single newspaper has to have a Musk in the headlines somewhere. And that keeps the cult going, right? People think he is the magic man and being on his team is worth paying 20 times what it's worth. At some point, he will stumble and fall. But I've been saying that about Trump for 10 years. Surely this will be the offense that brings him down. And somehow he manages to dance on top of the ball.
Yeah.
Both of them seem to be like a bear dancing on top of a ball. They manage to stay on
They
top
manage to stay there, don't they?
by just endless stunts and publicity stunts and saying outrageous things. They manage to stay in the headlines. They manage to keep their supporters happy. Both of them. They've got a huge cult of enthusiastic supporters that believe they're wonderful, and they know
Yeah.
what to feed them to keep that. It's amazing. When I was a kid, I was taught, don't lie because you can't sustain a lie. You need to tell the truth and you need to have real accomplishments. But these guys are proving me wrong. You can just bullshit your way apparently forever if you're good enough at it.
Yeah. So Sam, I got two other stories.
Yeah,
One is, did you go out to take a look at the comet?
I did not. I saw some
No.
news about it, but I didn't go out looking for it. Did
Yeah,
you?
I did. No, I didn't look at all, actually. I think you have to get up. It's very early, like looking for Mercury. You have to get up early in the morning, late or very early
And you have to
in the
travel
evening.
somewhere dark. So,
Yeah. So yeah. Just like the aurora borealis that was
yeah.
very active. Boy, there are some phenomenal photos
Hmm.
from around the Bay Area. But again, you have to be someplace that's dark. And interestingly, someplace that is dark, the Rangers are issuing tickets because it closes at sunset. The parks do.
The parks. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So people are going there to view it where it has to be dark. They get there and the Rangers are issuing tickets to people. So I do have one other story since you brought up Tesla.
Mhm.
Tesla apparently has made in the rocketry an enormous leap,
Well, that's
and that
SpaceX then, right?
SpaceX,
Yeah.
isn't that Tesla?
No, they're separate companies. They're both owned, although,
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah,
not Tesla, Elon.
right.
My mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another Elon company.
The separation between them is not that clear. In Brazil, when
Yeah.
Twitter bothered them, they seized the resources of either Tesla or SpaceX because in Brazil, they don't care about the difference. But in
Yeah.
America, there's technically a difference. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. Different companies, same
yeah,
same owner behind them,
yeah,
if you will, same founder that's still active. Okay. So what SpaceX has been able to do is capture one of the solid rocket boosters.
right.
And instead of where NASA with the space shuttle, we'd have the solid rocket boosters drop back into the ocean. A special team of divers, highly trained, would go back, retrieve the booster, bring it up. They'd have to clean it, recondition it. With SpaceX, they were able to have one come back to the launch pad and grab it successfully, therefore reducing the cost of refurbishing, reusing the component or
Yeah, SpaceX
components.
is
Yeah.
really impressive. It's amazing stuff. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
that like you say, if Musk would just shut up and make the cars and rockets, everybody would love him. When he
Yeah.
bought Twitter and joined Trump and everything, he's making a bunch of people hate him that he doesn't need to do. If he was a normal, responsible CEO, he would just be boring and shut up. And then his companies would be selling at their actual valuation, which is 1/20th of what they are. So
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
argue he's doing the right thing.
Yeah. Sam, I keep bringing this up since the early 80s, I guess. The person that was most hated in the tech world had been Gates, Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah, because in the early days, he was really rotten.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bill Gates has kind of faded away into history, and it's now Elon. Elon is the one
That's
that people seem to
And
hate.
apparently, from what people tell me, Larry Ellison is actually the worst, but he manages to be more quiet about it.
But because he's not in the limelight as much.
Right. Well, he was at the time a decade or so ago with the stupid World Cup or something, the boat race,
The boat race,
America's
yeah,
Cup
the
or something,
sailing.
where he
Yeah.
managed to like totally screw that up by requiring everyone to get these super expensive boats that nobody else could afford or something.
Yeah, but he
But that's a
wasn't.
small issue. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was something a little hobby of his, but he wasn't in the limelight like Bill Gates was all
Well,
the time.
I read an article in the Daily Beast, and they said, RFK Jr.'s wife says she's thinking of leaving him. They said, is it because he cheats with other women like that reporter? And she says, oh no, the Kennedys all do that. I knew that going in. The thing I can't stand is him partnering with Trump. Yeah, that I was not ready for. So, what can you do?
Hey, Sam, with the election coming up,
Yeah.
this is kind of an interesting ballot measure. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe California only, but maybe not. Sam Bankman Fried, remember that name?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Sam Bankman Fried put up a ballot measure about taxing, I think it was the wealthy.
Now
And
he ran RTX here in the crypto exchange, and isn't he going to prison for
I
that?
believe he's got to be in
I
prison
think
by
he
now.
was. He was either on parole or prison. So how is he still doing this stuff?
Well, so what happened was he got all the paperwork before RTX failed
Uh,
or collapsed, and it got onto the ballot. And once it's on the ballot, it can't be removed. And if you notice, you're not seeing any money or
so
you're not seeing it in the
so
news.
what's the ballot measure, like a California cryptocurrency or something?
No, it's not a cryptocurrency. I think it's I need to look it up, but I think it's putting a cap on how much the rich can be taxed.
Well, that would be appropriate. I know this is another Trump thing. He's now pushing a cryptocurrency, and now he's pushing, Steve Bannon's pushing this, I think, that he's going to resolve the American national debt by converting it to cryptocurrency. They want to get rid of the dollar and replace it with cryptocurrency. The Trump team is just raising like an endless series of outrageous ideas at the end. I think they know they're losing and they're just panicking.
Here, I'm trying to look up what it was that he did. It's a tax hike. I think um, let's see. It's qualified for the 2024. It came out from 2022. It's a midterm election, and I
Well, he
need
moved to the
members
Bahamas
only.
anyway to escape U.S. legal
Yeah,
restrictions. So I don't know why he cares what we do in California. But anyway,
yeah. Anyway, it's that ballot measure nobody seems to be talking about.
well, yeah. I think his name on it is a poison pill now.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how a ballot measure that nobody cares about
Yeah.
is going to perform.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those things work out. All right. Well, I think that's it for this one, eh?
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. We'll have another one on Friday.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.